Good afternoon, everyone. Let's start welcoming you here to GovSchool AI with helping you with your RFPs. And so we want to welcome you here first to YouTube Live as we go live here, and we'll get everything started here in just a minute. So thank you very much for attending and joining us on YouTube Live. We're going to have a good time this afternoon, and if you have questions, you can join us live in our Zoom room to ask questions. We follow along there. Starting to let everybody in now, and so welcome here to GovSchool.
Yeah. Yeah. I'll do it.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Mark. I'm here today to talk to you about the RFP. Just a reminder, as you come into the room, to please maintain your mute status. I certainly appreciate your time here. This is meant to be a question and answer session, though. You can type your questions in the chat box. Hi, I'll say this is the chat box here now, so we can all point to it, know where it's at. There you go. Chat's going to be our theme today. And so I do appreciate you coming and spending your Thursday afternoon. I know some of you probably are, you're probably on your way out. This is, here we go. I'll go ahead and let you record if you like, but it is a recorded version. It's available on YouTube Live immediately after this session. Okay. And so please know that. Please maintain your mute status as we go along. It'll take just a minute for everyone to come in. It is a copyrighted session, so please respect copyright and your terms of service as exposed on Zoom. I certainly appreciate your interest in coming today, though, and listening. It's, as I was starting to say just a few minutes ago, this is more of a classroom environment. You should be hearing sound at this point. Somebody's checking. The answer to that question is yes. Let me just double check. Anybody else having a problem with sound? I'm checking with some others. Anybody can give me a thumbs up that you got sound that you can hear? I'm going to take just a second just for technical reasons, just to make sure everything's okay. I'm not getting a response from the room. Like I said, I'm getting a couple of responses now, thumbs up. Okay, so sound is there. And I'm going to assume at this point, if there's any technology issues, it's locally, and please reach out to us. You can do that in the chat room if you have questions. Thanks a lot for moving over to YouTube, Chris. You can get some information on there. But know that the questions in the chat box here. Okay, I'm just continuing to let people in. We'll get started here in just a minute. Just give us just a couple of seconds for the technology reasons. Okay, but this is a traditional classroom environment, so it's you never know what's going to happen. If we are for some reason knocked off, we'll still be here at this channel, just join right back on. We'll continue to let people in the room. Do please maintain your mute status. Hopefully, we will spend probably about 30 to 45 minutes together with each other. With a primary theme of the request for proposal. And I'm going to really share some new exciting tools to help you in your process. I'm a big believer in, in experiential learning and showing you how to do some of these things. And so if you have questions, ask me. Some of this technology I want to show you today is maybe even beyond my scope of understanding at this point. I think things are just changing so rapidly, but I do think you should always use tools to help you in this process, the ones that you can find, and especially the cost-effective ones, and that's what I tend to focus in on. They all come with limited budgets when we first start out in the sector, and have a respect for that. GovSchool is a service of govdirections.com. We're located in Atlanta, Georgia. We have been in the sector since 1998. We're the host of RFPdelivery.com, where we now deliver using AI as well as geospatial analysis, new RFPs that are issued every day, some 5,000 of those on average, some 1.5 million a year, regardless of where they're published on the web, knowing that you can use our site to really track even when governments are posting in newspapers and other locations that are out there, some 140,000 different types of locations where they're publishing now, all pulled together. But one of the very first questions I always get whenever individuals first come to us is, hey, Mark, what is an RFP? And so I built this session to really kind of deal with that and answer that question. We've been doing this. I've been doing this for a while. So GovSchool is a service also by GovDirections to teach and to help you learn to win, because we know that if we can provide you with some resources, that you're going to have a better shot. And we try to pride ourselves on that. And then to round off our services, we have GovAdvice, which is a micro consulting platform. So if you need some technical assistance in writing your RFP response, we have folks who are able to assist you with that. And so feel free to reach out to us, or even just a general tutorial on how to read. I get a lot of those calls from individuals wanting to go through their first couple, and we're certainly willing to do that. We really think that you should learn to do these things yourself, so that's what we teach. But if you just are busy, then we do offer the micro consulting platform. So that's sort of a 360 approach. And today, what we're going to do is spend time together for about 45 minutes. I put some links in there already. I'm going to start sharing those. But one of those today, if you have an interest in AI and you want to learn, I have found this particular tool, Chat PDF, to be very helpful. It's meant for a personal tool, and this is not a commercial action, but it's meant to be to teach you how to use it on a personal basis. And you can go there and you can link there. And I've got a referral kind of link to show it comes from our site there to help you that. And then additionally, I'd like to give you a copy of a pamphlet that I wrote about the RFP, and you can come and download that if you like. It's just one that I actually prepared in a different way to teach a class on how to write RFPs to graduate students who are going to be your future procurement officers. And I reversed it, and it's there for you. My daughter helped me lay it out. It's not a professional ebook by any means, but just a pamphlet on some of the things I think are helpful, some of the things we'll be talking about today. Okay, I'm still letting folks in the room, so just gradually here, but now it's at 1:36, so let's get started. And so welcome to GovSchool, and we're still in 2023, almost halfway through now. So if for all of you who said, I'm going to win a contract this year, get to it. You're starting to run out of time. The good news is this is one of the most exciting periods of the whole year, because new governments are coming with new budgets that they're announcing now, and they're telling you what they're going to spend from July 1st on for the next fiscal year. States are going to start implementing one of the largest spending periods in American history. At the state government level, state and local governments are just flush, and kind of forget some of that discussion that's happening up there in DC, because local governments and state governments are just not in the same boat. They have balanced budgets. They have plans that have been in place. These are 4 or 5 year plans that have been in for various capital improvement investments, and they're full gear. And you should be aware of that. So if you're a little bit concerned about the federal, which I kind of am today, but what was once a gold certificate may not be a gold certificate anymore. But look no further than local and state government, which is likely not to be impacted in any significant way, any slowdown. In fact, it's going to probably be help speed them up and getting to some of these projects off the ground. So make sure that local and state governments are part of your business plan. And just remember, as we go through some of these conversations today, it's supposed to be hard. If it were easy, everyone would do it. So don't get frustrated, and don't get when you see some of these huge documents. I'm going to show you some shortcuts today to kind of get to the meat of what they're actually talking about. But this is one of my favorite quotes. I use it every presentation by Tom Hanks in A League of Their Own, and this is about a softball team. All of us can get out there and play softball. But if you want to be the best and you want to be really good at it, it's hard, and you got to practice and you got to get in there and really make it work. And so that's where I use this quote. I want you not to ever get frustrated. But all of us can do this. You're an entrepreneur, most likely a small business owner, medium-sized business enterprise. You can make these contracts your future work, and just know that going into it. And I teach this class coming from experience. I have some 35 5 years experience now. It's going to be hitting this coming summer. I'm supposed to stop counting after 25, I think, but I'm still counting. And I've won over 350 contracts in some 34 states. And that's taken a lot of willpower, a lot of applications and responses to proposals. But it has been, I really enjoy doing it. I enjoy working with local and state government specifically. And so I'm going to bring that and share with you today some of that success. So ask me questions as we go along if you have any particular question you want to ask. My primary purpose today for this particular session is to identify the structure of the RFP so that you know what to look for. I think before you can ever really respond to something, you need to understand it, and clarity of what they're requesting is important. And so I'm going to help you know which section that you should really walk through and understand. And I'm going to explain that each section's importance within an RFP. And I'm going to use an actual RFP as an example to identify each of the items I'm going to be discussing today. And then I'm going to show you a couple of tools I've dropped in the chat box if you have an interest. I think it's a free setup to begin with. So many pages. Most of this won't ever go above those pages, but it's a great new tool using chat technology, which is the everybody's talking about now. So get used to it. It's not scary at all. Once you start using it, it just speeds things up. And then you'll probably learn how your kids are doing much better at school these days. I think they're all using it to write term papers is what I understand. So you have to watch out. I'm a big believer in using every tool at your disposal. Why do you just like a calculator. I think back when the calculators first started really becoming prominent, everybody's, I guess, concerned that everybody was cheating on math for some reason. I remember we couldn't even bring a calculator into our SAT exam. Now, it's commonplace. And so, but it's the same sort of thing, but it's the written language and understand the written language. And that's so important in the way we communicate. And so I embrace this new technology in order to make sure that I don't miss something and use it to my advantage. So that's what we're going to do today. In general, when we're talking about a request for proposal, it's just one of the contracting instruments that we see out there. Okay. And I use the term, all these are definitely contracts. And as I said earlier, we used to be able to count on, and hopefully we still will be able to. But here with the government, it's basically making sure we're all treated fairly and we understand what is expected of us. But it's a way for an organization to work with you as a subject matter expert to provide services or supplies that they just simply can't do. It's based on the concept of the theory of the firm and why we go out and contract. But it's a strong belief in the United States specifically that we don't need government to do everything. And so they're encouraged to engage the private sector. And they use documents to do that. I call them instruments because once we're on the same page, page of music, then we're singing together. And so the terminology, I think, is important. It's a signal that you're working together with the government. And the ones that you primarily see is really the first is the request for information. I was actually sharing a request for information just a few minutes ago with someone, and they're telling them how important it was that they're as a new contractor to really get paid attention, because here the government's wanting to know if you're interested. And a general request for information is oftentimes for some complex problem that they're trying to solve, and maybe they don't have the answer yet, or maybe they're still exploring the answer. Maybe they're looking for an agile partner to come in and take them to where they need to be. And so you should work with those. But these are oftentimes not a formal request for a bid of any sort or actual contract just yet, but it's to see if you're interested. And then you have your request for qualifications. Requests for qualifications are almost always driven by the industry themselves. And so you want to make sure that you're competing against others that have the same sort of experience or knowledge that you have. So if I'm looking for a specific type of engineer, then I'm going to come and ask for your qualifications as that engineer, or even pre-qualifying potential companies that my government can work with over the coming years. For example, maybe we have a university. I'm going to go ahead and get 10 electricians ready to go in case any of the departments have need for an electrician. And so I want to go ahead and get your qualifications, get your pricing in line. And so I'll use an RFQ for that. So these are anticipated contracts, but with a grouping that only those who have similar service abilities or experience are able to bid together. And so I want to know that first. The source is sought more generically to see if a marketplace is actually available. We saw these more recently in a very heightened way with the pandemic, where just commonplace items like sanitizing wipes and sanitizer in general. We ran on shortages, and with the supply chain breakdowns in various areas, the government went out and basically sought information on whether or not you could provide a service or a supply. But they've always used them, and it's really to help them determine if there is an active marketplace. And oftentimes, if you're the only one that responds, that can go straight to contract. So never ignore those when you see those. I am going to ask everybody, please maintain your mute status. When I mute all, it actually, it's not meant to be mean in any way. So we can have a good background noise here. I'm going to stop just a second. Someone's asked a question. If they ask for experience in RFP, can you use the subcontractor's experience and license? Well, sure. Yeah, go ahead and help them understand why they should be hiring you. That's a perfectly fine way to do that. In fact, most governments will actually ask that in an RFP. And so when you're looking at the source of salt, I just call attention to those, because oftentimes those can lead straight to contract. So please don't ignore them just because it's not an active contract right now. In those first three, it's important that you actually have your capability statement prepared, ready to go at the federal level, and most likely this kind of at the local government level, where they use these types of instruments. This is what the type of information they actually are seeking. Okay, and so in your capability statement, that's a document that's defined typically by the federal agencies. They're looking for some specific parts. And I don't know if I've got Cynthia Harper on the line here. She had indicated she might join us today, but she's not here to hear. Dr. Harper is one of our experts, and she can guide you through that. And we have a couple of webinars online and teaches you how to actually prepare your capability statement, so you can get in there and get that done. But if you need some technical assistance to make sure it stands out, feel free to reach out to us. But in the capability statement, you're looking for the same information they're asking for in the RFI, the RFQ, the source of salt, your core competencies, your NAICS codes, your PSC codes. Sometimes if you're looking at local government, the NIGP commodity codes that you have, any sort of certifications that you have. There's basically the 6 C's of communication and contact information, and making sure they understand your executive mission and that you really are a good fit. And I teased you today in your email, but the truth of the matter is, this new technology is being built in such a way that the government's they're able to take every single PDF that you send into them, and I'm going to show you some of those tools in a second. But everybody who sends in a capability statement, they're going to just be able to drop it in there, and they're going to be able to search real quickly when they're looking for, someone did with this particular NAICS code or this particular keyword. It's going to present that information for them. So making sure that the language that you use on your capability statement has never been more important. Okay. And that's going to be the differentiator between your company and others in the future. And so if you're first to market with that type of information, making sure that your capability statement speaks the language that the government is actually looking for, then you're going to have the lead. It's just no doubt about it, because if they're going through thousands and thousands of capability, believe me, there's over 1,000 companies a day expressing interest for the first time to do business with the federal government. That's just one level of government. Okay. And the first thing they all have to do is to speak to their capabilities. And while it may not be necessary for you to win your first contract, and you should always go out there and really start trying to win that RFP or win that invitation to bid, regardless if you've got a capability statement, it is something that's necessary when you're looking for an RFI or RFQ or a source of salt. And not being ready to go will put you at a disadvantage. Okay. So the first few investments that you make, I would never tell you to ever wait for the preparation of a capability statement, but that should be one of the first few investments that you make. It's just a 1-page document. Going into 2, 3, 4 pages is a bad move. They're asking for 1-pagers, and they have the specific items that they're looking for. So you have to do them right. Okay. So it's not something to take guesswork as. This is a recorded version today, everyone. I'll continue to do that. We're live on YouTube, and you can go to YouTube right after. Make sure you subscribe there. It's completely free, and you can always go in. You'll be notified when we have a new session. Then we move into the more, here's work. We got to get you hired, and we want to hire you contract. Okay. This is when they're using an invitation to quote. Oftentimes very informal, sometimes just picking up the phone and calling you because they've got your capability statement on file. They see your contact. They reach out to you. you match them, and they just want a quick quote, ready to go on a particular item that everybody should understand and can respond to in that field. Okay. Sometimes it's also more written and formal, but still very quick time frame, 3 or 4 days. You'll see a lot of these for the government printing office, for example, where they have so much, they already have the specs laid out and they just need for you to quote a price. Maybe someone getting pest control is also another one. I see that frequently. Okay. Then we move into the more formal invitation to bid, but still specific or request for bid. They know then what they're looking for. They have the specs and they're asking you to respond typically in a low price situation. And it could be something by per square foot, by day labor, or potentially by by a widget number count, something like that. Something simple to understand for everyone who is in your market and competes against you. Okay, so here as you prepare yourself and you're looking over time, you're going to want to make sure you have that Google Drive or that Google document and in place for you to come in and actually do some analysis. I do a quick session sometimes on how to price and how to go in and make sure I'm in the right pricing market. I was looking at one just yesterday. When I used to go back to the sanitizing wipes, there was, whenever I saw a bid, it had maybe 60 different responses, and the low was, which one was 12,500, and the next closest to it was 22,000. So somebody left on the table some $10,000 roughly that they didn't need to, and the highest was 125,000 for the exact same product. And so just know that people and companies sometimes befuddle me in terms of how they actually apply things logically. I'm actually at a point that I can bid and I know pretty precisely exactly what the winning bid's going to be and where I need to be in terms of in ability to compete with it, and my chances of winning that when I go into it, based on just some standard indicators of success and data that I'm collecting. You should get to that point too for your business. And then finally, what we're going to talk about today is the request for proposal. So all of this is sort of a combination of the others, but the request for proposal itself is one that requires some thinking, first of all, in the traditional definition, it is a solicitation. So that's something that you need to understand. The government wants to do business with you. It's competitive. You're going to be competing against others who are going to respond to that RFP request, the request for proposal. One of the very first questions I get to is, Mark, isn't this a done deal? I'm looking at this thing and I'm reading it and it looks like they're going to hire my competitor of some sort. Well, the truth of the matter is the answer is no. Okay, it's not a done deal. They're asking for responses. Why is the government going to go through that step when they don't have to? Governments have plenty of ways to go out there and just hire you. That's not an issue. There's sole source, there's justification processes. In governments in most states can have a leeway to go in there and just hire. Okay. And so when you see the RFP, even if it looks like it's been written for your competitor, it may have been that the information has just been, lifted from, chat, from AI, because they don't want to go out there and redo, why would we want to reinvent the wheel when you can fire for it and somebody else? And so they're still looking for your response. But just understand that it is still a solicitation. And it also is a bidding response. You are competing against others. And it's not always about cost on the bid. Okay. In fact, it's frequently not about cost. And so I share that with you. And so you should understand that going into it, that when you're looking and you're doing performance research against your others that you got to perform against, your comparative research, you're not only looking at the price that they're offering, but you're looking at things like their experience, and you're looking at things like their qualifications, and you're looking at things about their proposal methodology. And these are the items you're going to be compared against. And government's going to tell you as one of those. I'll show you these parts in just a minute, but the evaluation method. And so you should pay attention to that in the RFP itself, because it is a bidding process. And then it's also, just remember, they're conducting business between two parties. It's an agency looking to hire a company. Okay. And the reason why, it's something valuable that they need to have done. It's a commodity or service. It's a value. They put a lot of energy into this process. Most times an RFP is thought about for years before it's actually hitting the streets. And understand that they put a lot of time into it. And so they want you to take it seriously. They want you to follow the instructions. And it's something that they don't likely do. Okay. And when you submit it back, it should be a business proposal. Okay. And back to them. in a way, in a method that they know that they can trust you. You can build that confidence and that you're going to be able to provide the services or supplies that you need. So understand that this is the official way that governments can contract with you as a company. When you open that RFP, what you're going to start looking at, and sometimes they're just laid out just like I have it here. Somebody maybe taking my class in graduate school and they did what I told them for a change. Or other times it's all over the place. Okay. And so you got to find these parts. Okay. Remember though, whenever you lay out your response, you're going to have, maybe you're going to start building up samples that you have in place. I have a Google Drive that I have everything there. Every single RFP I've submitted is there, response back. And sometimes I lift it back the same way. Other times I have to rearrange things, but you should always arrange your response then in the method that the government lays it out. Okay. So don't make them go looking. So if they've got their technical specs laid out after the deliverables, then when you speak to them, you speak to the deliverables first, and then you talk about the technical part later. So rearrange your thought to them. Okay, that's very important in your process of winning an RFP. The primary person you trying to get past the first step is the procurement officer, and they're making sure that you're following the rules and you're dotting the I's and you're crossing the T's. They're not evaluating your product at that point. Okay, they're not evaluating your final response. Okay, they're going to see that. You will be able to get copies of the slides and still getting questions asked those afterwards. And in fact, let me go ahead and just share it with you. This is a Google Drive that I've built that I can share information. Okay. And you can just copy, if you're in the Google Drive, go ahead and grab these slides right now. Okay. It's there for you. And then we'll see everybody pop in there probably if you're familiar with it. If you're not familiar with Google Drive, get you one. It's the best thing since sliced bread, if you ask me. But your statement of work is the first thing you're looking for. Okay. And so whenever you actually understand how to read the statement of work, it should be maybe 2 or 3 pages. Okay. And when you're going through there, the very first thing I always tell people laugh at this sometimes, but when you read that statement of work, it should speak to you. Okay. It should start singing a song. It should start singing a Coldplay song specifically. When I love it, you're the one that I wanted to find, and you just made my day. Okay. And so I like to use that quote because if it's not singing that song, walk away from it. It's a $6 trillion marketplace. Governments, there's plenty of opportunity for you. It really is. And if it doesn't speak to you right away, don't try to make it where it's going to be what you want it, because it's not going to be. It's going to be what the government wants. Okay. So understand that going into it. But the statement of work, the most important part of it, it should be clear to you. And when you see it, it should start actually referencing, specific indicators that you should be watching for. I call them indicators of success. If I see these words in a statement of work that match to what I have in my capability statement, that match what I do in my professional work, then it's going to be more appealing to me right away. And this could be things like geography, where I want to work at. Here's a great weekend. I want to go fishing this weekend. If I find the contract in the Dakotas near a river, I'm going to go after that. That's an indicator of success for me, because you could do some other things besides just work in those communities. Great places to be. Other things could be, population size or workforce size. Something that's important to you. It's not always just the frame of the actual responsibilities and the tech specs, but other things that make you want to work there. Okay. And so know that going into this, when you see that statement of work, the technical specs, this is always sort of the things to make sure that you and the company are on the same sheet of paper. This is what they're looking for. This is what I'm able to do. They usually are numbered, itemized. And so you need to understand that when you read through those, when you respond back, you need to respond back in the same way. Okay. Now, while I'll say if the statement of work doesn't speak exactly to you, and you should walk away. And the technical specs, just because you can't do one thing, that's not a reason to walk away. Okay. Everybody could be in the same boat, or it could be a way for you to step back and say, hey, how about I partner with somebody, okay, and I go out and actually and get them to do that part, okay, and do some subcontracting. So that's where teaming starts to occur. And oftentimes, when you see something, the technical specs aren't really all matching up, then you'll see most likely a pre-proposal meeting or ability to ask questions, and then that process will get worked out. So don't let that scare you away right away. I have, once again, in my Google Drive, I have a document that's basically technical specs that I've found in various RFPs over time, and I'll go ahead and sort of write a response to those as I build those up. And it's important that you probably do the same thing. Just speeds up the time. And as I always tell everyone, when you first get an RFP, make sure you read it all the way through, and then you agree with the things the things that you really understand. Don't worry so much about those, and then focus on the things you don't know. That's going to be the best way to spend your time. And then you'll see a schedule, 2 parts of the schedule. One part of the schedule is how you're going to respond to them, the time that you have. Use it effectively, okay? As another quote here, always use work expands as to fill the time available for its completion, okay? If they give you 3 or 4 days to do a response, you gotta be ready to go, okay, and get it done. You can do it, especially with some of these tools I'm gonna share with you. And then on the other side of that, if they give you 60 days, take the 60 days, because likely things could change. They gave a long period of time in order to accommodate for that, okay? And so you should know that. Don't just fire off a response right away. And that's just all kinds of potential mischief that could occur if you get in there too soon. I always have mine there a day ahead. Try to get there day ahead. And also if you're doing an upload, don't wait till the last minute on a schedule in order to do an upload. These technical snafus all the time. I had a client miss a $2 million deal one time because of his technical problem. In fact, I did something the other day and it was 6 o'clock and literally I was doing it and it became 6:01 and it didn't allow me to do something. It was so frustrating because technology drives that process now, and it can create all kind of obstacles for you, even though I thought I was in there in time. Okay, and then you have your list of deliverables. Here is really what the government's asking you to provide to them, and this is how you're building your cost too, and to make sure you fully understand that you can meet the deliverables, and especially if it's tied to a schedule of work performance. And so, and this is, sometimes you'll see here how their payment schedule would actually work as a part of that deliverables, and that can drive your pricing scenarios that you want to lay out. And so if I have a project, it's going to be required me to do something in 2 months that I normally do in 4 months. Well, of course, I'm going to increase my price, and so I can see that. It's not that I can't get it done, but I'm probably going to have to clear my schedule of everything else in order to get it done. So that's a higher cost. Okay, so understand that and build that as a part of your performance analysis in terms of how you're going to end up at pricing and delivering. But those deliverables should be something you would see common in your industry, and continue to build those up, and make sure you speak to every deliverable a government request. It's the same thing on technical specs. Make sure you speak to everything. Never leave anything for doubt. Okay, and so even if you can't do something, don't skip over it thinking they're going to forget about it. Okay, it doesn't happen that way. So go ahead and list those out, and if you can't deliver, you tell them that. That's not going to be a reason for you to be denied the contract. Usually, it's something they typically will work out. They want to know right up front whether or not you can do that. Contract terms and conditions. In government contracting, as I mentioned again, what we're seeing is unheard of at the federal level in terms of defaulting and on some contract that we have in place and governments have in place with you. That's just like unheard of, because you were expected, in fact, this has been basically the gold certificate you've been lined up with. And so it's important that you should be able to count on those, just like they want to count on you and understand, because the government doesn't move on their terms and they don't move on their conditions. In almost every contract I ever looked at, appropriation is one of the requirements. That if for some reason a corporation is snapped, your contract is dead. And that's a bad situation. And so you got to be aware of that going into it. You might want to get better ones. You might want to go back up and revisit them. Hopefully everything's going to come to pass and everything's going to be just okay. But it's putting us in through this process is just unheard of. And as a company, you got to be able to rely on those contract terms and conditions. This is your profit center. Okay. And never expect a government to move on their contract terms. It's just not going to happen. So you got to live with it. Format of proposal. The format of proposal is one of the great things about an RFP and working with government, because they're going to tell you how they're going to evaluate you. Okay. And that's not always the case when we're responding to a private RFP. You and I can, as a private company, can just shake hands and go forward. Oftentimes, and you don't even have to give me a formal proposal. In government, it's almost always that way. So they're going to tell you how to respond. And if they say they want 10 pages, they only want 10 pages. Don't send them 20. They want every page signed. Make sure you sign every page and that you don't bypass that. Okay. So make sure that you follow those, the format and understand that. And as a part of that, you'll find the request for the qualifications, the experience, and how to sell yourself. I haven't seen this question just yet. I think maybe that was the first one I had. But everybody's like, Mark, I don't have any qualifications. I don't have any experience. How do I frame that? Well, the good news is you do have qualifications and experience. You've started your company. You're an entrepreneur. They expect that. It's okay. You don't have to have 10 years under your belt with one company. That does, governments are flexible to something. They may say that in their RFP or the invitation to bid, but don't let that be a disqualifying impact on you. Go ahead and respond, explain to them, and sell yourself. No one's going to sell yourself like you are. Okay, I use a quote in my boot camp that General Alexander Haig always gave us, and it's that basically you are the one who can sell your capabilities and nobody else. If you depend on others, they want to negate what you say. Okay, and they're not there to help you, believe me. And so understand that. So have your qualifications experience lined out in the right way, in the right frame. The same information I present out west when I do an RFP can be used in the same sort of format when I do something in Tennessee, maybe, but I might want to reframe certain parts of it. So you can have various types, various paragraphs that you use in order to explain yourself. But go ahead and get that written up right away in different formats, in different ways, and then the experience of everybody on your team or everybody who's possibly going to be on your team when you respond. Okay, and I do a lot of 1099 type proposals where we bring in contractors or bringing in subject matter experts in the particular areas. That's perfectly okay, and I just keep a whole list of running of individuals who I consider experts in the field, and I call on them as necessary. But I want the government to know when I'm responding that I might do that and have that ready to go. And then the next is the cost breakdown. This always, I always sit back and I'm amazed sometimes at the variations in costing and pricing. And I'm like, how did you miss it so much? And so you really got to spend some time on this and understanding it. And you can look and you got the statistics there. They're available for you over time. It's not something that you can't get. All final awards are made public. You have usaspending.gov where you can go and you can pull federal contracting pricing. And so you have all these tools. So there's no reason you shouldn't use them, and help yourself. I mean, I can go in my field, I can pretty much tell you where the 75th percentile is at, and that's where I'm bidding because I've been doing this for a while, and I expect a higher premium because of if I'm looking at a evaluation method where the breakdown is 40 to 50% qualifications and only 10% cost. I'm not going to go in there and lowball it. It doesn't make any sense because I'm going to get almost all the points of qualification experience. And so understand how that breakdown works. And it's almost always spelled out in your evaluation criteria that's laid there for you. And there's a point system that's done. It's generally nothing that's complex. And you can actually use that point, basically take it and then pass around your office maybe, or pass around your home and let everyone evaluate your response first. And when you get 6 or 7 people doing that, you'll get about the same response or same scoring as if it was through the government, because you're not bringing in all these RFP scoring experts, what they're bringing in is human beings who have an interest in helping their community, hire the best qualified individual to provide a service or supply. And so they're thinking about the same way as you're thinking, to be honest with you. And statistically speaking, you're going to score yourself about the same way. But I routinely bid almost always at the 75th percentile when I bid. When I do that. Now, when I first started, I didn't want to do that. I didn't have high levels of qualification experience. And so the evaluation criteria, I lost some of that. So I had to go cheaper on my pricing in order to build up those points. And so only you know where you need to be at. And you can do that by tracking various methods. And frankly, the ones I track, almost all of them have the same 5 measurements that they're looking for and using in order to award an RFP. So after a few of these, you get used to it and know what you're doing. And you step back and you learn from those. And I think that's important. So as we've gone through here, these are your typical parts that you're finding. I'm now at a 35-minute mark here on the class. You can start asking some questions, but I'm going to show you some tools here as we go in and actually find one of those that, as I said, you're the one that I wanted to find. And I'm going to show you how I approach the work process. And, just helpful tips I've talked about here. First, read the entire proposal. Pay attention to the areas we just discussed, and then really set aside and think about it. Talk to your colleagues. Make sure you're a good fit. Because you've already gotten past that first requirement and it's sing to the song. And now you may really make sure that, it fits in your timing, it fits in your goals, and that you're actually going to be able to make money off of it. You don't want to go in as a huge competitive situation, or maybe go do some research. The last thing I want to do is go in there in a community where everybody on the board or the city commission is fighting. And if there's a constant 5-4 votes or 3-4-3 votes, I don't want to go work with them. They're hard to work with. And so you think about some of those things before you bid, because that's going to drastically increase your cost of doing business. And you might want to rethink that. So just don't see something simply because it's available. That's something that's important. And then complete the whole proposal, and then wait your time and let that time expand, okay, until you have time for the final completion and send it in. And always remember, as you're going through this process, another quote always used from Professor Einstein, but hey, the only source of knowledge is experience. Remember that, okay? So get in there and learn. You're going to fail, okay? When I actually teach the class, the boot camp, I actually focus in on when I failed at, not because I deserved to fail. I actually should have won it. I actually had all the high points, but you come to learn some basics in this industry. One of those is the social cost of this discussions, and how emotional decision making can be, and how it's not always a logic. In fact, I always quote Professor Coase, who's a renowned individual who theory of the firm and how we all decide to contract with each other. And he did a presentation, and I think it was in University of Chicago, where somebody's asking a question about the human involvement in decision making, and how why it is that they sometimes don't choose the best thing. And he basically went back and he said, humans are stupid. And everybody laughed about it, but his honest to goodness answer is that it's not always logical. And so even what I'm going to show you today is some of the technology that we're going to be using in the future, and I think can help in a lot in the decision making capacity, and how to evaluate the RFPs and so forth. But you still are always in human involvement in the government sector. It's just nothing we can get away from. It's a common practice. We have home rule philosophy. We want to be able to make our decisions locally. And so you understand that not every time that you do something and you don't win, does it mean it's negative on you? You just got to learn that in the process. You don't have to change things going forward. You just got to understand that decision making got a little bit tangled up and didn't happen the way it would. So let's go out there and take a look at an RFP. And what I want to talk about today is, I'm kind of having a little fun with this with chat RFPs. Okay. And so, let's learn to chat with our RFP and use it to really go out and find the answer to some questions before we go out and actually bid. In RFP delivery, our goal is to come in and put the main put you in front of RFPs that are actually going to meet you in your field. And so I want to take you here. Let's see if I can get it going. I'm always concerned when I'm on going live, but it's on the web. And when you go in, you're able to search, and you're able to go in and search techniques. And we got filters here to help you. If you don't know how to use it, you can watch on our YouTube live. We teach you how to use filters to really zero in on some contracts and going in there. And for purposes of demonstration day and also speed, I'm just going to focus in on, just the keyword functionality, knowing that you can always now save these keywords, and, and do elaborate keywords, which functionality like, Boolean search techniques like R, OR, and, things like that. Go out and then search Boolean search if you're not familiar with it. This is the way we really searched before, Google came along. But here, two keywords have to appear together. This is a project that I'm looking for. I'll go in and I'll search that and get some answers in there. So search, everybody's saying search might be done away. I don't kind of go that far, but it's not going to be the pure conversation just yet, but maybe soon. But I can always save that word search so I don't have to redo it over here in my account, okay? And then pull it up. And that's called capturing the bid in the industry. But here are all the active compensation studies. This is the kind of work I do for governance, and this is what really led to us to create the site GovDirections first. Actually, way back when, created governmentbids.com, and then GovDirections, and then now RFP delivery. Here we are today. And going through and I'm looking through, and I'm looking at the state that it's in, the due date. I've got looking at the level of government. Here's a state and local, almost always, for every federal government contract, there's probably 20 once you get out of the defense spending at the state and local level. So that's where most of the business is really at. So make sure you don't get caught up in that trap of just going after federal contracts. It's, that most of the business, most of us is at state and local level. I can always do the social sharing mechanism, email it to my friends, others, make sure that, we got some cohort work responsibilities on here, and then going in. But the main goal is stepping in and understanding and seeing this contract. And so this one particular here, it was in Accomack County. That was actually, I went in there, they didn't have enough information on their link. So I went back for the purpose of the demonstration today and looked at one in Michigan. There was only a one pager. It was easy enough to read. But then you had to send off with the details, okay? And so here's the one I wanted to show you in Michigan itself. And I went in, and then this is in Marquette County. Michigan. Giving you some details, who to contact. Sometimes it's specific. Most times it's generic. They don't want you to call in. It's not a huge office. They want you to call in and get information. You can talk to anybody. Seeing the county it's in, the location, geographically where it's located at. I can go in and capture it specifically so I don't lose it if I'm going to be working it, so I know which ones to go out. And I maintain those captured bids as long as I like. So they might go back on this one about every 5-6 years. I might want to come back and look at that 5 or 6 years from now, and it's still there. We've been around for a long time, have some 5 million records for our clients who are using that. Going to see where it's at the map in case I have to go to a pre-proposal meeting or something like that. Learning, teaching, and seeing a consultant if I need to, giving you some competitive intelligence that you might have. But this one's due June 7th. I'm ready to go. It's speaking already. I'm hearing the music starting to play. Believe me, I'd love nothing more to go at Marquette County. Here's the RFP, and goodness great, it's actually in a PDF. But look, it's pretty long. Some of these can be really long. And I'm kind of I get pulled in a lot of ways. Well, I've saved it. I want just maybe a quick version of it. So let's go over to, first of all, Bard now is one of those systems that you can use. Bard is at Google, and you can go in and do bard.google.com. And let me just add this tab here so I can give you some other tools now, because I'm building prompts for clients, and you can ask me to build some prompts for you. I'd be glad to. But this is bard.google. Okay. And at the same time, I'm going to, this prompt here, I'm going to share this prompt list that you can go out and use. Prompts are important. Remember, you're conversational, okay, when you're dealing with AI, and you have to ask it. So let's go out. I want to actually ask them to ask Bard to help me with this. How would I respond to this RFP? Okay. And Bard goes and gives me some answers. So while I'm going, oh, there it goes. To respond to the RFP, you're going to need to do some things. And actually, I think maybe went out there and searched what I just told you. Some of the things are straight up there. They're going to give you a sample cover letter. Oh, man, that just saves a lot of you don't have. I know I used to be, I think, frightened a lot really from getting that blank sheet of paper. What do I write on that blank sheet of paper? But you get to a point where you don't have that concern anymore, but you want to do it in the right way. So they even give you some room to insert details. He does. Oh, and they give me a project plan, milestones, what I'm going to have to do, and so forth. So here, the example qualifications and how I'm going to respond to them. That just took out really probably an hour and a half of having to type all this up. Okay, it's there for you, ready to go, and you can type in any particular PDF. But this one, Bard didn't really give me some of the details. So I've learned to use this new tool called Chat PDF. Okay, and I dropped in, for those of you who may have came late, this is actually available to you, and I've got a referral link on there. I'll go ahead and just notify you of that. There's not really significant amounts of referrals for this, but I want everybody. Most of it's free, I think, and they use it. But you can go in, and I can go and find that PDF. Let's just get back in here. This is Marquette, Michigan. Okay, and I'll go to Chat PDF. I'm going to drop in from a URL. Go get it. And it's going to come up and it's going to store things for me. Not only this, it's going to store my history of all the PDFs I'm potentially reading. And most of my PDFs are RFPs. So using tools that are right there available for you right now, right today, to save you time after time. And so they're even giving you some example questions because you don't know what to do because you're brand new. Okay, what is the purpose of the classification study? Okay, well, then I'm going to go and ask them. Let's just see. Here we go. Aren't we all lazy? No, you know what? These are tools, using tools to speed up your time is what they're there for. And that's what you want to do and to get in there. And so, he's helping remind you. So and you can go through and read all the scores, but it's also right now it's storing this over here. Of course, if this is awesome for small business, you're exactly right, Chris. That's like, whenever I started using this, it's like, wow. I mean, no reason to reinvent the wheel. It's there. So they have 5 hard copies. Well, it's just stored this for me, so I don't have to ask these questions again, and I can call them back. And not only that, you can drop some of this information, the tools, you can share it with others, you can name your chat, things like that. It just really saves you a lot of time. And now, at the end of the day, I'm not a big believer it's going to write the response for you. You still got to get the details, but it gets the framework there for you. And that's going to be helpful for most companies that just you just don't have, I mean, you're pulled in all kinds of directions. I've already had 2 people come and tap on my shoulders because they want me to do something right now. And this is, as a small business owner, you're pulled in so many different ways. And this right here is available for free for at a certain level. And I think they're like $5 for the type of, you never would probably use that much. And so forth. It just gives you the prompts and the answers. And I just wanted to share that when you got that on there. And I would encourage you to make use of these tools and the best you can. And we were going to continue to innovate and put the data in front of you. They don't have, we're going to save you hours and hours of time that you don't have to actually go out and find all of these particular requests. They're all over every day. Since we've been talking, we've added probably 30 to 50 new RFPs that have been issued. So it's a constant marketplace. So I want to encourage you to make use of these tools in order to win business. And going back to our goals for 2023, and that was to get started finding and winning. And with that said, thank you for joining today. If you have any questions, I'll be glad to try to answer. I've given you some tools that you can use. This is a recorded version that's available online at YouTube Live. Excuse me, it's youtube.com/govdirections on a live tab. Make sure you subscribe there. It helps us in rankings and so forth, but it's also will alert you when you need to, when we have new sessions, when I do these frequently. So we don't have to constantly send emails to you reminding you. As you see, there's a full class today. So I thank you for joining. I hope your Memorial Day is a great weekend. And feel free to reach out to us. We certainly would like to see you as a full member if you're not. And we have some great rates. I don't want to get too commercial here today, but we have some great rates here around Memorial Day. Dale can get you started right away. And we're going to put some business in your pocket. And so everybody have a great afternoon. I'm not seeing any questions. Any questions? Great.